Our Prime Minister is saying, look, Mr Macron, we look forward to renewing. He always calls us our European friends, doesn't he? He always says our European friends. How much of a friend is Emmanuel Macron?
Oh, no, he loathes us. I mean, he absolutely, the classic French anti-British, especially anti-English leader. He's an EU fanatic. He'll never, ever forgive us for Brexit, and we can expect more obstructionism, especially on things like Northern Ireland, where clearly compromise is very important. If we can't get it, then the government may well have to trigger Article 16. We'll get zero cooperation on the cross-channel migrant problem. Boris Johnson can use whatever warm words he likes. It's not going to be a good relationship between us and France.
What did you make of the 41% of the vote that Le Pen still got? I mean, she may not have won, but biggest fan base or support group that she's had in recent history.
Yes, I mean, what's interesting is every single election that goes by, she gets a little bit stronger. And it reminds me of the journey of an anti-establishment party in Britain who they dared to call extreme. You know, UKIP in 1999 in the European elections came fourth. In 2004, third. 2009, second. 2014 first, and we got a referendum. And I see a very similar trajectory in France. And that's why, when you looked at the victory party and the acceptance speech of Macron, there wasn't much cheering, there wasn't much celebration, because they realised that actually, on current course, the dam is going to burst at some point.
Interesting about Marine Le Pen, and you talking about how she's sort of been reinvented or more acceptable, and you comparing it to your own party and yourself there. They call it the de-demonisation of Marine Le Pen. So we can see it's progressing a bit. How's the de-demonisation of Nigel Farage going?
Well, look, you know, the very policies that I fought for a quarter of a century are now mainstream. Brexit has been done. And we have a government that says it's going to stop illegal immigration. Now, whether they do is another thing. So, I mean, look, we were a rebel movement. We were abused in much the same way that Marine Le Pen has been. And we won. We fundamentally changed the course of Britain. Now, her problem, of course, is her father, because there's no question that her father really was genuinely anti-Semitic, very racist in many ways. And that's been a very difficult thing for her to deal with. But credit where it's due. She's turned that party around, she's kicked out all the extremists, and actually she's done a pretty good job.
But critics, I suppose, you know, people would say perhaps some of the policies that you champion and perhaps she's championed as well is that it's been divisive. And you can certainly argue that waking up this morning, Monday morning in France, it is a divided nation. And the challenge will be, do you think and accept that it is a challenge to try and find that common ground? Because, you know, we can't get anywhere. You can't get through. Parliamentary elections are going to be a huge problem in France as well with all this division.
Well, look, I think division gets caused when fundamental changes get put upon people's lives without anybody being asked. I mean, at the end of the day, if you voted for Macron, you were voting for a European future, an EU future for France. If you voted for Le Pen, you were voting for a French future with a very different relationship with the EU. And those divisions have been there for decades. It's just that, we've got a politician in Le Pen, just as we had with Trump in America, who is giving voice to it. So all I would say about division is I think it's really important that both sides accept that the other has a legitimate point of view, and we don't try to stop free speech. And that's the biggest worry I've got, is that, the tech giants on the West Coast seem to want to stamp out anybody that's got a vaguely conservative or nationalist view.
So, meanwhile, we're left with another 5 more years of Macron as president. With Angela Merkel gone, presumably he wants to be top man in Europe.
Well, I think he will be. I mean, I think that not only is Merkel's reign utterly discredited, and there were many people that warned her, don't make yourself too reliant on Russia, but she did.
You've met Macron. What's he like as a bloke?
Well, I met him at a cocktail party, and we chatted, and I've also debated with him in the European Parliament. He does have a sense of humour, Eamonn, because he said to me, the enfant terrible is what he called me, so I quite like that. Look, he is intelligent, He is articulate. He has very, very influential backers and supporters, and none of that is in question. But I do honestly think there is an arrogance, there is a detachment, there is a sort of Parisian sense that this is where France really is. And you've only got to go a few miles outside the city to realise that much of France feels very differently. It's rather like our Brexit debate, isn't it? You know, David Cameron was seen to be aloof, not connected with ordinary people. So, look, I think the truth of it is there were no big celebrations last night because they know they're in for a very, very difficult 5 years. They know the divides in France between the wealthy in the cities and the increasingly poorer living out in the countryside and in the provinces is only going to get worse. And I think they also know that whether it's Marine Le Pen or whether it's somebody else, in 5 years' time, there is going to be a challenger to the establishment who's going to get very close to 50%.